John here with RealTruck.com. Today we're going to show you how to install a 4-inch lift kit from ReadyLIFT onto this 2011 GMC Sierra. This kit comes with everything we need to do the front and rear lift on this truck. What we have here is we have our rear U-bolts, our lift blocks for the rear, we have our front lift spacers, upper control arms, our skid plate, and also our blocks for our front differential. One of the really nice things about this lift kit, not only does it come with the control arms with the ball joints already installed, but also new polyurethane bushings to go in the ends of the control arms. Having everything ready to go, we're going to go ahead and get started on the back of this truck. First thing we want to do once we get this thing up in the air and get a tire off is make sure that we put some kind of a jack stand or support or something underneath the rear differential, because when we start taking these U-bolts off, it's very important that you got something under here so this whole thing don't just come crashing down on the floor. One of the things that you might have to do in order to get your differential to drop far enough to get your block out and put your ReadyLIFT block in is to go ahead and pull your shock bolt loose here, so that way your rear differential can extend down, and that's what we're going to do now. We've got our factory block out. We're going to go ahead and put our new ReadyLIFT block in. Something that you want to make sure you pay attention to. If you look at this block, if we hold it so the bottom is pretty much level, you can see that there's a taper here. Make sure when you put this block in that this high end of this taper goes towards the back of your truck, because if you do it the other way, it's going to throw your angle off and you're going to have all kinds of problems. So that's very important. Okay, once your block's back in, then you can go ahead and get your new U-bolts that come with your ReadyLIFT kit. Go ahead and put these back over. Now, make sure you get these back in the right place. They just sit down and a little notch up here, kind of a little hoop on the top of this plate. Put your nuts and your washers back onto your U-bolts. And once we get these all back on, we'll go ahead and tighten this up. And make sure these are good and tight, because we don't want this coming loose and having our differential fall out of our truck, because that'd be no fun at all. And got these all back in, got our new block in, got everything tightened up. We're going to leave this shock off until we finish the other side, because that'll help us to get this down on the other side and make our job a little bit easier. Got our block and everything on the other side. The only thing left to do is go ahead and put our shocks on. Put the one on the other side already, so we're going to go ahead and put this one back on. Folks, that's it. That completes the installation of our ReadyLIFT kit on the rear of our truck. So we're going to go ahead and let our jack down, and we'll go get started on the front. We've got our wheels off, so we're all ready to go to get started putting this front lift on here. So the first thing we want to do is go ahead and let the fun begin and take off this front debris cover. While we're here, and we've already got our weapon of choice in hand, we're going to go ahead and take our front differential skid plate off too, and just get that out of the way. After we get our skid plates out of the way, the next thing we want to do is come over on the sides. On both sides, we're going to remove our brackets that hold our ABS wire on. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, we'll go over and do the one on the other side. And don't throw these bolts out, because you will need these when you reinstall your new lift. The next thing we want to do is remove our sway bar links. Remember how these come apart, because there's a specific way that these go back together. And what I recommend is to go ahead and pull your bolt leave it all together, pull your link out, which you might have to pry on it a little bit to get it to come out of there. But make sure then you take the same way it came off, just slide it back together real quick. And so that way, you know how to put it back on when you replace that. This way to get these up and out of here, they make a tool called a pickle fork that you can put in here, drive it in with your hammer, it pops these off, but a lot of times it'll tear up these rubber bushings. So I recommend just taking your hammer and hit this right here really good, and that'll pop out. Just like so. And then we'll go ahead and do the one on the other side. Got our tie rod ends loose. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove our lower strut mount bolts. We've got our differential all prepped, so now we're prepping the truck to put stuff back. We've got one more thing we got to take off. We have to take this rear differential mount off, or right differential mount off, and we'll have to get these bolt studs out of here. So got our passenger side differential mount out. Now what we need to do is we need to take these bolts that are pressed in out of here. Normally you could clamp this up in a vise and drive them out. If you don't have a vise, another thing that works is get yourself a big socket that actually fits around the head of the bolt here, and just put it down on your table, and just put the head of the bolt down inside there. And make sure when you drive these out that you go ahead and attach the nuts that came off back to it, and you want to get them flush, and that's so we don't damage the threads or mushroom the end of the bolt, so that we can't get our nuts back on here. Next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and start, we have our blocks. We want to go ahead and start mounting these up underneath the truck. So what we want to do at this point, go ahead and reinstall this back into the truck, and then we're going to put our spacers, attach our spacers to it using our hex head bolts, and we'll put those will actually run through the spacers and through where we just knocked those bolts out of. So we've got everything all prepped, ready to go back together. We have our spacer blocks, and we're wondering, okay, which side does which one go in? The easiest way to tell the difference is, other than the obvious size difference, is that this one has an indent in it. It's designed to go back on the driver's side of the vehicle. There's a bump. If you look at your mounting bracket up there, you can see a bump sticking down that goes right into that cutout. This one, for the passenger side, obviously is bigger, wider, and there's no indent in it. So we're ready to go ahead and put this back up in the truck so we know which ones go where. When reinstalling these, or installing these, make sure that you have the biggest part of it towards the front of your pickup. And you'll take your hex head bolts, put those through, up through where we knocked those studs out of there, and you're going to reuse the factory nuts that were on those studs to attach these. 2 longer bolts are for the one on the passenger side. Okay, we've got that up there in place. We'll go ahead and tighten it up. Got this one attached. We'll go do the other one on the driver's side, and we'll get ready to put our differential back. You guys remember that notch that I was telling you about? Right here's the nub that sticks down. It's going to slide into that notch. We'll go ahead and put our mounting bolts in. Now on this side, you don't have to use any type of nut. On the other side, it's designed to screw right into the factory differential mount. Got our differential going back up in. One of the things that we want to go ahead and do now as we're putting it back in is go ahead and reattach our wire that we had taken off up here on the top and get that reattached, and also our vent tube hose. We want to go ahead and reattach that while we've got it down here where we can actually reach everything pretty decent. Once you get it up in there, it'll make it a lot more difficult to put everything back on. So, okay, we've got that. We'll go ahead and continue to push this up into place. Got our differential back up in here, basically in place with maybe a little bit more jockeying around to get our bolts started. But right here is where our cross member goes across here, and this is the spot where we had to grind down our differential. Looks like on this one maybe we could take it just a little bit more off, give us a little more space, but it'll still be fine just the way it is. And the reason, so you can see now, the reason why you got to grind that down is so that it'll slide over the top of this mounting bracket for the cross member. So let's go ahead and get this thing bolted in here and go from there. The other side, the driver's side of the differential, will attach with the factory bolts that you took out. This side, if you remember, we had studs in there that we knocked out to attach our blocks. So in the kit, you'll find these bolts in a little package. They come with the lock washer and the big flat washer. And these are the bolts that you use to attach this side to the block. Got everything all mounted back up in here now. So we can go ahead and on this side get our vent hose reattached. It's going to take a little bit of work, guys, to reattach this because you got to get up in here to get to it, and you're gonna have to stretch it a little bit because of course we brought our differential down lower. So we'll get this reattached and we'll reattach our differential solenoid wire, get it in place. That's all up in there. Now we're gonna go ahead and put our cross member back in and continue on from there. Got our cross member back in. Next thing we're going to do is put our upper control arms in. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and install our bushings. Now these actually aren't too tough to install. All we got to do is take them apart. They come put together like this. Just pull them apart, set them out. And then what I usually do is I'll just take the control arm, leave the bushing like it is, put it down on there and just kind of slide it, wiggle it back and forth. A little bit of pressure on it. Boom, that one's in. And do the other side of it. Now on this side you can actually take the hammer and just tap it down. Pretty easy peasy stuff there. So we're going to go ahead and we'll do the other side of this control arm, and we'll do the other control arm, and then we'll start putting them in the truck. We've got our bushings in. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and install our grease zerks that come with the kit, and they just go in the holes in the end of our control arm here. Spin it in. Take a 3/8 inch wrench, tighten it down. And on these particular ones, what I like to do is get them turned so that way they're facing up when you got it down like this. So when it's installed in the vehicle, they're facing out. It makes it easy to get grease in them without having to fight with them too much. Okay. We got this reattached. However, remember we marked these when we took them off. So what we want to do is go ahead and get our wrench and our impact, get ready to tighten these down. But when we do that, we'll want to readjust them so that our marks that we put on them are all lined up all the way across. So that should have us pretty close on our caster and camber alignment adjustment. So we'll go ahead and I'll go put the one on the other side, and then we'll come back and we'll start putting all this stuff here back together. So got our control arms back on, got them all set pretty close to our original alignment. Now it's time to go ahead and put our spacers onto our struts. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the spacer that comes with our ReadyLIFT kit, and we're going to attach it onto the top of our strut using the nuts that we'd taken off earlier to remove the struts from the truck. If you happen to get these and you start to put them on and for some reason they don't fit because they're not, you're looking at it and going, these aren't lining up, you may have to turn them until you find a spot that they fit because they're offset. Okay. Keep in mind that just the same way that this was offset when we put that in, this will be offset too. However, a good little trick is that down here on the bottom where it bolts on, you're either going to have it in the right position or you just need to flip it around, line those back up, and that should put it in the right position. Let's get the bolts, bolt this thing up, and get ready to do the other side. What we're going to do to make this a little bit easier for us, we're just going to get these started down here. We'll put the bottom ones on, and then we'll let the truck down and tighten up the top ones like the way we took them off, basically. We put our lower strut bolts in. One of the things we got to do for this, because everything's going to be at a different level and different rate, is the spacer that we took out of here earlier, we're going to leave it out, and also the clips that were on here that our bolt used to go up from the bottom and screw through, we're going to take those off because we're going to use these new bolts that come with our ReadyLIFT kit, and we're going to put them in from the top and drop them down, and then we have new nuts and washers to go on the bottom as well. We've got our new bolts in, with our nuts and washers on them. We'll go ahead and tighten this side up. We'll do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll start putting all this stuff over here back together. Got our struts all back in. Next step is to go ahead and reconnect our upper control arm to our steering knuckle. One of the problems that you run into sometimes when you put these spacers in is trying to get this spring compressed so that you can get this steering knuckle reattached to your upper control arm, to your ball joint. So one way of doing that, it's not necessarily the best way, but it's not the worst way either, is to put a jack stand underneath your lower control arm, let the truck down onto the jack stand. Now I don't know, it depends on whether you're using a hoist like we do here in the shop, or if you got it on a jack. Whichever way, then you can utilize the truck's own weight to actually push this whole assembly up to where it'll meet up with your upper ball joint and allow you to get the stem through and reattach the nut. Once that's done, then it's pretty much smooth sailing. We've got our upper control arm reattached to our steering knuckle. So next thing to do is just start putting back our brackets and reattaching them. Get our axle reattached to our front differential, and to go from there. So. have our new skid plate that helps protect our differential, especially seeing how it's hanging down a little lower now. We need something pretty stout under here. It comes with new self-tapping bolts that you use to install it. So we're just gonna put it up in there and get this thing done. There you have it. This completes our install of the ReadyLIFT 4-inch lift kit on our GMC Sierra. And the only thing to do now is to take this thing down the road and see how it rides. Until next time, happy motoring.